Welcome to the November 29th edition of the PFF Forecast. It is the last November forecast. I can't believe it's already December. A fantastic show. The season officially started last week with Thanksgiving, so it's great to be in week two. We'll do some injuries, some SGP builds, locks of the week, and a solid 45 minutes on the dangers of AI and how that might change the world as we know it. That's right. Unless you've been living under a rock, you heard that Aaron Rodgers has been designated to return, or not designated to return, open the practice window. So he has 21 days to rejoin the team. And I am hoping, I don't know if we can make this happen, will it into existence. Maybe ESPN bet, with the pull that Greeny has on Get Up, he can get this market. But I want total number of snaps that Aaron Rodgers plays until he gets injured again. What do you guys set that line at?
Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN bet we might have a boost on it. It's like
Greeny boost.
Maybe a boost. Maybe you could do a parlay of that with something else. But if one leg breaks, just like Rodgers' leg broke, then it doesn't count. It's a loser, not a push. Some different ideas for ESPN bet to throw out there.
I for one would not doubt the power of the Dolphins. Listening to Dolphins can go a very long way. I have no interest in.
They're incredible animals. Incredible animals. When I hear the Greeny boost, you know what I think about? I think about the MLB steroid era and how much I miss it.
Real Greenies, the original Greenies.
Greenies.
I got you.
The last time baseball was good.
It was. As a Sammy Sosa supporter, it certainly was the last time baseball was good. I mean, back to the Rodgers thing real quick too. Like to the Dolphin, mating sounds. That is the game he's targeting. Maybe is it a coincidence? Is it not? Christmas Eve against the Dolphins after he gets healed by Dolphins. Connect the dots.
That's actually a really good point. Maybe the fact that he's playing in Miami, where there are actual Dolphins, will help him stay on the field. So maybe the line gets moved to like 8 snaps, maybe makes 2 series.
Yeah, I think you boosted a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. How about injuries that will actually impact the NFL season, and in particular this upcoming week? I guess there are a couple that are certainly of note, but Brad, why don't you take us through, starting with Thursday night Seahawks and Cowboys?
Yep. So it looks like, Geno Smith good to go, but Kenneth Walker is doubtful, probably not going to play in that game. Again, that's why you draft second-round running backs in back-to-back years, also known as the Chahuri method. So Zach Charbonnet will be there. He'll be fine. Anyway, Geno, I think, is totally good now, like no limitations of any kind. The receivers there, I think Lockett always tends to miss time, but I think all three of those guys are good to go as well. And then, on the offensive line, Phil Haynes, the guard, is out, but, nothing notable there. So that's the situation for them. For the Cowboys, extremely healthy. I guess quietly one of the more healthy teams across the NFL at this point. And let's see, of note, nobody of note at this point, nobody new on the list there. So those teams are good to go. Across the NFL, Jonathan Taylor is now out for a couple weeks, if not the entire season. For fantasy relevance, for prop relevance, probably the biggest name this week, no question about it. There's a lot of trench players and, like secondary players, but really when it comes to the guys we're going to be talking about for SGPs, for props, for things of that nature, it is weirdly a relatively healthy week for an NFL week 14.
That's a good point. So Jonathan Taylor out. Is he going on IR?
He had said they hope to have him back in 3 weeks, so I would guess no. I guess lean no, and he doesn't go on IR, but it's certainly possible.
How much did that line move?
I didn't notice a movement. Well, here's the thing. I guess Zach Moss, I think his I don't know which company it was, but he was maybe in PFF, was RB2 this week. So that shows, the massive drop off
Huge.
That's going to occur at the running back position.
Huge. I actually went immediately to try and pick him up, and then found out that both teams I'm playing against this week have Zach Moss, and I was discouraged. So yes, that's why you draft him in the first round or second. Anything there in particular? I mean, it is a very, very light week. Anything that we would see from a betting perspective that is noteworthy there? I struggle as well. Okay.
I assume Lane Johnson's good to go.
That's the big one. Yeah. So some of the more that are kind of questionable. Lane Johnson's certainly top of the list there. Got the MRI of the groin, was on the field pregame and going through the motions, but obviously did not play in that matchup against Buffalo. Nick Bosa plays on that side of the offensive line almost all of his snaps. So it's a potentially massive absence there. No news as of yet of exactly what's going to happen, but if he doesn't play, it's probably the most meaningful injury across the NFL.
Yeah, that would be huge. And that line currently at Niners by 3 in Philly. That is kind of disrespectful. I'm sure we'll talk about that game here in a second. Yes, Brad has no shame about his background. He's willing to bear it all. All right, it is time for SGPs. Now, I don't know if we talked about this on the Sunday show because Arjun is on that show, but before you get into it, Judah, I need to tell this story. So Black Friday morning, we're going to be subjected to Tim Boyle in all his glory. And we're talking in our Slack, what's the kind of the narrative that we want to bet on today? And Judah's like, I've got one for the real sickos. And it was delightful. So it was a concentration of Dolphins yardage. So it was Tyreek Hill, 120 plus receiving, Jalen Waddle, 100 plus receiving, Breece Hall under 57.5 rushing, and Raheem the Dream Mostert over 120 rushing, 150 to 1.
1,500.
Oh, 1,500 to 1. Yes, sorry. Even better. 1,500 to 1. And obviously we all got on board. And I mean, if it weren't for, I feel like the Javon Holland return, we might not be doing this podcast with blurred backgrounds because we'd be on a yacht in Cabo. The Javon Holland, the Hail Mary, I really feel like was what set us back. That and the resurrection of Jeff Wilson Jr. But Tyreek ended up with 116. Waddle cleared 100 easily. Hall went under. And I think Mostert ended up with 90 and 2 TDs. So anyways, that is the lead in to Judah's SGPs for this week. I don't think I need to say anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, real sweet if we can hit on a 1,500 to 1. I didn't even realize that SGPs went that high, and for a 4-legger, that would be special. But we can, try and hit on some maybe lesser ones, but still enough to one day pay for a nice yacht. I'm going to start with tomorrow night. You kind of playing a very similar angle to what we did on Thanksgiving Day with Curtis Samuel, which is that the slot receivers have really enjoyed a lot of success against the Cowboys. And that's going to be attacking Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. I'm seeing a 95 yards at plus 1,700, which I love as a leg on its own, but also kind of combining that with maybe some Seahawks plays or even a Tyler Lockett under, basically telling the story of Jackson Smith and Jigba continuing to see more of the work and him being the target against a Cowboys defense, which has really struggled to defend slot receivers and has been really good on the outside. Kind of one I like pairing on the other side is Brandon Cooks also has an extremely high. I think it's also 1,700 I saw for 95 yards. And this is a guy that I kind of thought was washed after week 5 or week 6. But his separation numbers especially have been going way up. He's really established himself as the number 2 receiver in Dallas. And I think it's not just Brandon Cooks is a deep guy sort of role, but has, his route tree has also kind of expanded to really be the clear number 2 receiver for the Cowboys. Devon Witherspoon will, I imagine, be following CeeDee Lamb on a bunch of his snaps. Not that I think that will necessarily slow them down, but there's plenty of volume to be had in this Dallas passing attack, which is passing way over expected and with a ton of success since coming off their bye like a month ago. I expect both of those guys to kind of be primary targets. Both have deep roles, in which a couple of these hit. They can be played separately, they can be played together, but both players I'm going to want to be building SGPs around tomorrow night.
Tell me about playing them together, because usually we concentrate on one team. I feel like this is the first time that I've seen kind of like overs on, I guess, somewhat non-correlated positions, right? Like sometimes you'll go with, running back, receiver on opposite teams, stuff like that. But to my knowledge, this is the first time that we've kind of seen this kind of a build. So maybe that's just my memory, but I guess take me through kind of the correlation between those two things.
Yeah, I think it's mostly neutral, but it's the fact that both of these legs on their own are, I think, so mispriced, and in like by virtue, but they're like when you do a same game parlay, books are going to take more right off the top, but by combining the legs, the prices are so far off. Right, when you're getting 1700s on things that I would make a lot less than that. You're essentially overcoming that like vig that the books are holding by the virtue of the correlation. And I think they're like probably a little bit correlated, if anything. Especially if you view it from the like Seattle side of things, if Seattle is going to have a receiver go way above his expectation, that probably means they're having more success on offense, which is going to Dallas is going to pass. I think they're going to pass with success. And it will they'll only further pass more because Seattle will have scored points that they can, Dallas will pass later in games if a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba is breaking a big play or going over 95 yards. But really, at the core of it is just like you're overcoming the vig that you generally have with same game parlays by how poorly each of these individual legs are priced. And I think they absolutely can hit together.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, we've got one locked in for tomorrow night. Where else are you heading?
We're going to go to Indianapolis here. It's Gardner Minshew. And I think I'm going to want to play both Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. I always want to say Jeter Downs. I think he's a shortstop for the Red Sox. I got to keep catching myself saying Josh Downs. But don't look now. These two guys have really, really taken a hold of the Indianapolis target share. I mean, they each had 14 targets last week. Maybe it was 11. I don't know. Double-digit targets. I can't remember exactly what it was. And I also think that Indianapolis has kind of proven to be the type of team that is going to vary their run-pass splits based on the matchup that they faced last week. They passed 7% above expected against the Tampa Bay team, which is a pass funnel. We always like attacking them. This has also, by the way, been true of the Eagles teams of the past bunch of years. Obviously, the Shane Steichen connection is there. And if you look at the past 5 or 6 weeks, the Tennessee Titans have been the biggest pass funnel defense in the NFL. Last year, this was certainly a team we'd love to attack. Right now, they're number one against the rush over the last 5-6 weeks in basically any efficiency metric you want to use, and their pass defense has been dreadful. I expect that the Colts are going to throw early and often. Maybe if Jonathan Taylor's hurt, that can only help things on the margins. But this is a more concentrated attack than I think is being priced for the sample of the entire season. I think Downs and Pittman have recently emerged as these clear number one and number two options. And I also think that Gardner Minshew's pricing kind of reflects a team that's okay. We don't know if we're going to run or pass, but they are more than happy to, pass 7-8% over expected if the matchup calls for it. I think they should have plenty of success against the Titans team. I'm going to be building SGPs around Minshew and the Colts spreads. I'm going to be building, with Downs, with Pittman, with both of them. All of those angles I think are firmly in play. Especially considering I don't think the market has kind of caught up to these, later season adjustments with Minshew and the receivers.
There probably is an opportunity, not necessarily the same as the Dolphins, but concentration of yardage with these two guys.
100%. It's almost like in my mind, it's like a carryover of like DFS. And like how I think about it. Maybe that's a topic for another time. But yeah, like anytime you can kind of take a wide receiver one, wide receiver two correlation, which is that books are going to say like they're cannibalizing each other. There are only so many yards to be gained, but basically saying actually the function of the game story allows for both of them to excel. is kind of one of these anti-correlation plays that I think are, good SGPs to be building around. And this definitely fits the bill.
Makes sense. Unfortunately, I don't have a pithy get up segment for this. I don't think they're going to talk about this game on Get Up. I don't think it makes the cut of segments for Get Up, even though Minshew, you can do a lot with his name there in the titles. All right. Where else?
I'll go with maybe a couple of more lesser, flyers, I'll call them, waiting to get pricing on the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. But the offense has been abysmal the past couple of weeks, and I think they found themselves in a pretty negative game script against the Rams defense, which I think is actually a little underrated. Brad, I think we were talking about this on Sunday night. It's been a little better, but the Steelers defense is not particularly good, and they bleed explosive plays. I think a lot of their kind of good numbers or efficiency metrics are propped up by bad quarterbacks. And I think the kind of narrative that's going to be baked into the pricing, again, I need to actually see the pricing in order to know, but is, okay, Kyler Murray's back. Cardinals are upgraded, have a kind of good game against the Falcons. And then it's like, oh, actually, we're worse off than we thought with 2 bad games. But I don't think that's really kind of changed the fundamentals of this is a clear upgrade with Kyler Murray. He's going to put up yardage at a certain point. They're not running him as much, which I think only helps with the passing volume. He has the receivers. He's going to connect deep with Marquise Brown one of these weeks on a deep bomb. The Steelers are bleeding explosive plays. Kyler Murray, while he might not be running, still can evade the rush very well by virtue of his scrambling ability. 5.5 point spread is far too much, I think, for the Steelers offense. We can talk about that later, but all that I think leads to an SGP build around Kyler, maybe including Marquise Brown. Again, all price dependent, but a spot I'll look at. And then another very quickly, there's another, I think we might be running back the Miami, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I don't know if I'll do Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson, because Wilson obviously ate into a lot of that work, but I think that's firmly in play with just how many explosive plays the Washington defense is allowing. Miami can strike really, really quickly. And they didn't, what's amazing about that game against the Jets is I was kind of anticipating a 60-yard touchdown, a 70-yard touchdown. I thought oh, this is only going to happen if we get one of those, Waddle or Hill bombs that kind of gets most of the yardage quickly. They didn't really do that. It was more chunk play. Sure, there were explosive plays, but none of those 60, 70-yard strikes. I think we'll be seeing a lot more of those against Washington, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm a Sam Howell believer, riding the variance or whatnot. But if anything, I think that pushes the, pace enough that Miami still has to score 31, 38 points. And they still are not going to be pricing this correlation of wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and running back 1 properly, I don't think.
What about our king, Devon Achane? Is he going to play this week, Brad?
It's possible. He was limited. Judah, I'm not super confident in it. I think they give him 1 more week off and then we get him back. I know.
Yeah. I feel they have no reason they have no reason to rush him back.
Yeah.
But I would love an Achane build here because he doesn't need the volume. He's just going to go for a 60-yard touchdown run.
Yeah. And that they would have to price him, conservatively, I would think, given the limited number of snaps he's played. Everyone's overusing that meme, the Cuomo meme, where he starts crying, during the interview and says, I can't do it right now. The best one is, Dad, tell me about the 3 weeks of Devon Achane. That's the best one. Some of them are really bad, by the way. People need to check themselves, but there are some good ones out there. All righty. It is time for Locks of the Week. Brad, as usual, you save it up. You're ready. You're prepared to kick us off.
Yep. I'm going to start off with a prop. I think it's, something of a trend now. I think it's good to just kick things off, get a little weird to start, and then we'll, funnel to the norm. So we just talked about this game a second ago. It is the Brian Robinson over 55.5 combined rushing and receiving yards in this matchup. So first, the Dolphins are bottom 10 in EPA per play and success rate against the run. And of course, we're thinking, okay, this is not going to be a great game script against the run. Brian Robinson had 15 carries against the Cowboys. And yeah, it wasn't a blowout the entire game, but it was a passing game script for pretty much the majority of that football game. Still got the carries. has been a consistent check down outlet for Sam Howell as well. Yes, you're going to get some Antonio Gibson, who also factors in, but they had the same number of targets, I want to say, in that Cowboys game. And I just think the 55.5 number, I think it's, I guess, so reliant on what the expected game script is here. Because, I mean, he's gone over that number by double digits 5 weeks in a row. And there have been some softer opponents there. But I also just think at the end of the day, you're getting a lot of garbage time here. They go into a bye after this game. They have no reason really to care about anything, as it relates to saving guys or anything of that nature going forward. I think you're just going to get the most you can get out of each guy you have in the Ron Rivera, the Riverboat Ron conclusion. So anyway, Brian Robinson over 55.5 combined yards.
I love it. Brian Robinson was a lock on Thanksgiving Day, by the way. And yes, that's not Cuomo. It's Vince McMahon. I don't know what it says that I thought Cuomo, not the one that got fired from CNN, but Andrew, his brother, who got fired from being the mayor, was what I was thinking. But yeah.
Hey, that's why we have legal gambling in New York. So shout out to that Cuomo. Right. When he was disgraced and on the way out, he was like, let me just legalize weed, gambling, whatever can salvage a vote. Didn't work, but shout out.
That the perfectly niche, podcast where that works. I love it. My prop is going to be Evan Ingram over 43.5 yards receiving. This is a Bengals team that just for the life of them cannot defend the tight ends. I mean, Pat Freiermuth led the NFL in receiving yards last week, emerging from the dead. They're allowing a 0.5 EPA per play, a success rate of about 62% to tight ends. It's an absolute disaster. I don't know why this is the anecdote that I'm hearing in my head, but I can just remember on Red Zone, Scott Hansen saying something, or the announcer saying something about how Evan Ingram doesn't have a touchdown. And they were like, the Jaguars are well aware that Evan Ingram doesn't have a touchdown. Not that that's what's kind of driving this bet, but they're going to be feeding him the ball by virtue of the matchup, by virtue of, wanting to get the ball into the end zone. The books are pricing the median here. Every week, the Cincinnati Bengals are allowing receivers or tight ends, to go over their median props against them. This is a bet I really, really like.
Yes. In fact, on Sunday night, Brad, what did we talk about with this game? Last one, it was Monday Night Football, and I was like, just something to pay attention to. They got absolutely skewered, the Bengals did, by tight end Pat Freiermuth. They got skewered by George Kittle. They've been getting eaten alive. I can already tell you this is one of my favorites. I'm going with the prop as well. I'm going to Eagles Niners, and I am looking at our king, Brandon Ayuk. Okay. This guy is, whether it be, now I think this is a conversation potentially for another day, but the degree to which scheme enables separation for receivers, which would be something very interesting to talk about. And just real quickly, the reason that I'm interested in that is, Judah, you tweet this out every week, how well receivers are grading in terms of separation. We chart that for every single play, not just the ones that they're targeted. And then how will they do after the catch? And I think the top three guys in combined separation and after the catch are all playing in a Shanahan scheme. Now, they're also very good players in Ayuk, Hill, and Tank Dell, but how much that scheme enables players to get open. Now, I think that is helpful in this situation, because if you look here on the screen, you will notice that the cornerbacks for the Philadelphia Eagles, not particularly great, not playing very well this year. Neither is the middle of the field coverage players. So I feel really, really good about this being a bit of an Ayuk game, where I think people will believe it's going to be a Samuel game. But in reality, I actually don't think that there's going to be a ton of pressure generated by the Eagles defensive line. Very, very good, but as we talked about, not necessarily generating a ton of pressure. So I like Ayuk over. I think his line might be a tad bit depressed. We saw Debo get a lot of run last week. Ayuk had a couple of plays, but only two receptions last week. So I don't know what this line will come out at. I'm not seeing anything out there unless you guys are. here, but he was the first one that came to mind. Just love the matchup against the Eagles.
Yep, I
I've
like that
seen-
one. And they're going to attack the middle of the field and attack those linebackers. And, that is Debo too. But I think we've seen the crossers and mesh and all that with Ayuk all season long. That has been Purdy's maybe his favorite throw of the entire season. One more prop. This is, you probably couldn't characterize a sack prop as buying low, but I think it's exactly the narrative that I'm going for here. So here's the narrative. Dak Prescott has not taken a sack in 3 straight weeks, which is awesome. He's also played the Giants, Panthers, and Commanders, maybe the 3 worst pass rushes in the NFL. The 5 weeks before that, 5 weeks in a row, he took 3.35 sacks. He had a pressure to sack rate of 27%, 21%, 33, 33, 26. He's not like bad in that category, or I think particularly good. I think he always finishes around like 17 to 20%, probably 12 to 15 range. But I think you are buying low on a Boye Mafe over a quarter sack at plus 160. So why Mafe? He spends about 2/3 of his snaps on the left side going against the right tackle. Cowboys right tackle Terrence Steele, coming off an injury, is a good player, but has a 47 pass block grade because he hasn't really been the same guy off the ACL. And as a pass protector right now is the weak spot. So we do need Seattle to score and for Dak to be actually dropping back, because obviously that's also why he hasn't taken a sack in 3 weeks. But I think you're getting pricing of they're viewing a guy like, oh, he hasn't been hit or sacked in 3 weeks. True. He also took, what I just say, 19 sacks in 5 games with a pressure to sack rate above 25% in 5 straight before that. So that's why I characterize it as a buy low. Mafe's been great. Pressure rate well above 15%, and recently in particular has been balling. And I like the matchup against Terrence Steele.
I like it. I can't believe I'm the first one to propose a teaser, but I'll propose an island game teaser, taking the Cowboys from 8.5 to 2.5, and the Bengals from the Jaguars from 8.5 to 2.5. I mean, the Seahawks might be a bottom 5 team in the NFL over the last 6 or 7 weeks. Geno Smith is not healthy. Not that I think that's really mattered. And Dallas, as Brad said, very healthy. They're a complete house right now. Letting Dak throw and Dak having success. Talk about the emergence of Brandon Cooks, which I really think does matter. Kind of limiting Michael Gallup snaps, letting Jalen Tolbert get in a bunch of ride. All of a sudden, Dallas has a lot of options here that have played well, and they are letting Dak. They're letting Dak cook, and he's doing exactly that. The Seahawks have been bad at home. I like them to win by a field goal. On the flip side of things, I think one of the biggest mispricings, if you kind of look at like how markets are pricing certain offenses and defenses, if you look at like unpredictable, which I think captures a bunch of it, I think has some flaws, but it's nonetheless a very valuable tool. Right now, they have the Bengals as the 5th best defense in the league, which I think they must have flipped the bottom 5 for a top 5 rank. This is an atrocious defense right now. Getting absolutely burned by explosive plays, allowing explosive plays at the highest rate in the league. They can't stop the run. That's a disastrous combo, and it's also exactly what Jacksonville does.
Yes.
Which is like they just want to like pound the rock for whatever reason. And Trevor Lawrence has been awesome throwing deep, in the receivers. Ridley and Kirk are terrific deep ball receivers. I like Jake Browning. I think the market tends to kind of overprice the difference in backups. Starting for good quarterbacks, but I think this is a totally different class of opponent right now, and Jacksonville matches up so well with Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's I was looking at that game too. I really like that teaser. There, I guess you could a couple other teaser legs, but those are probably my favorite, especially if you get Dallas down to 8.5. The other one worth calling out is that if you have Eagles, you can find at 2.5 in some spots. Getting them out to 8.5, I think, is interesting. We talked about this on Sunday. Like, I don't know quite what to make of the Eagles, because they have I think it's the 2nd lowest point differential for any 10-1 team in history. Their passing offense, I don't feel like has actually looked right like all year, weirdly enough. And I think that's scary for them going forward in terms of how good they could be. But Jalen Hurts, like, Like, the guy's awesome, but he is not playing as well as he did last year. All that being said, they're playing at home. And with or without Lane Johnson, the offensive line is still very, very strong. They still have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Like, they still have a great defensive line. So it is a formidable situation for big, Brock Purdy to go into. So that's the other one that I'll throw out there. Before I get to my next one, this podcast brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, prizepicks.com, where you can get your first $100 deposit back in bonus bets if you use the promo code forecast at prizepicks.com. PrizePicks is awesome. It is the best way to play daily fantasy that you can possibly find out there. It's very, very simple. You pick a player, pick up to 6, I think, but you pick 2 or more players, and then you choose over or more or less, I should say, on a particular stat or fantasy points, and you can combine players across different sports. So it makes it a lot of fun. If you're sitting there on a Sunday, you're going to watch some NBA as well, potentially. And the great thing about it is it is super easy to use, unlike some other places that can be very confusing. This is straightforward and easy. prizepicks.com/forecast. Use the code forecast for a first deposit matchup up to $100. Obviously, we have talked you through a few different ones. I will highlight the one on Thursday night because here's one of the rules on PrizePicks. You have to choose a player from each team. And one of the reasons that I asked Judah about the players from both teams is that, it's kind of hard if you have only a player from one team or players from one team. It's hard to do on PrizePicks, but you can do it on prizepicks.com with obviously players from opposing teams. So that unlocks the Brandon Cooks and Jackson Smith and Jigba play that we talked about earlier. prizepicks.com/forecast. First deposit match of up to $100. Also, our friends at Gerber Life are making your life a little bit easier by making it easy to get high quality term life insurance to protect your family. I'm sure there's some parents out there and you want to make sure that, that everyone's taken care of and you can worry about the things in life that you care about, like football. Go to meetfabric.com/forecast to get started today. It takes only 10 minutes. You can get an awesome, affordable term life insurance policy plus other financial solutions with their easy-to-use online hub, and it takes less than 10 minutes. So go to meetfabric.com/forecast. All right, my next play. So I was thinking about kind of, some of the maybe under is the wrong word, but players that have not gotten enough love this year. And one that comes to mind is Mike Evans. Mike Evans grades 17th in the NFL this year, 15th in receiving grade. He consistently, I think, separates better than what people think, despite the fact that he's 6'5", 231. He is a really, really, really good receiver, and he's been doing it for a very long time. In fact, he's playing better this year than he has in any of the past 3 years. And I think that's going unrepresented by the people out there. And so I like Mike Evans over. You look at the wide receiver versus cornerback matchup here. It is one that I think you can take advantage of. No, I don't think losing Frank Reich is going to solve any of the Carolina Panthers problems. And so I like Mike Evans over in this matchup against the Panthers.
Yeah, I like that one because even like Dante Jackson's a decent player, but he's on the smaller side. It's not a particularly great matchup. Yeah, with Mike Evans.
5'10", 180.
Yeah, not the ideal frame and stature for a guy that you're hoping to match up with Mike Evans. Yeah, he really has kind of, I don't know. I guess we've just become accustomed to Mike's going to put up 1,000 every year. But this year, I think it was the first time where we should be appreciating it a little bit more than we probably are. I'll throw it out and come back around. Maybe I have one more bet. I'm pulling up behind me, but one more teaser leg got to throw out there. All right. Do we think Des Ridder is going to cover 8.5 points at Jet Life with a total of 34? Do we think he's going to do that or not?
I mean, Tim Boyle might attempt a Hail Mary, and it's going to turn into a pick six, and Des Ridder's not even going to have to.
It's a fair point. I just wonder, the Jets' offensive line issues have been particularly at tackle. The Falcons don't have edge rushers. I don't know. It's just I'm just throwing it out there.
I hear it. I hear it.
I mean, Desmond Ritter last week, the fact that they won, is very, very surprising. He was not great in that game. He's still 34th out of 37 quarterbacks. Yeah, I don't think the stint on the bench rejuvenated him in any way, shape, or form. The thing that would worry me is like the Jets defense is the real deal. And like we saw in that Jacksonville game where Desmond Ritter like single-handedly scores points for the other team. And in the game against the Saints, he had the benefit of playing against Derek Carr, who scored points for the other team, and he needed that. So as long as Tim Boyle doesn't throw a pick six, like I know that like the chances are obviously higher for Boyle than they are for anyone else, but like he just has to avoid throwing a pick six to have like a legitimate shot. But I do see your point. The fact that you called him Dez is disrespectful, by the way, Brad.
He's Desmond. You're right. Okay, so I just checked the thing I was looking at. I said pre-show. I was wrong. Not pre-show. Early in the show when you said it was their line movement for Jonathan Taylor, there actually was. It moved about a point. It is from Colts -2 to Colts -1, so not a very meaningful point, but a full point of movement nonetheless. I'm not really sure what else it could be attributed to. I think everybody else is healthy. We talked about the Colts -2, -2.5 as a potential bet on the forecast on Sunday. I think Arjun actually took it as a lock. Yeah. I'm there at this point too. So I'll throw the Colts in the ring. You talk about Pittman and Downs and this Titans, secondary has just been a total pass funnel, and it has been a problem. If anything, you could maybe make the argument like running the ball less could benefit the Colts offense in this particular matchup, and they'll feel less inclined to do so now without Jonathan Taylor. This should be more than a point, even at Tennessee. I don't really care about home field advantage in the AFC South by any stretch of the imagination. So, Colts -1 here.
The Titans kind of stink.
More than kind of.
Like they played the Panthers at home, and that game was not. It was like in the balance the whole game. Like it was tough to watch. I like this one quite a bit, especially now that you've told me that the line has adjusted. Jonathan Taylor's a phenomenal player. I think your point is solid. I like the way their offense works when they don't feel the need to hand it off to John. Like when he's on the field, they force feed him the ball. Zach Moss is a really good player. And Shane Steichen's a wizard. So big fan of that one. Judah, you're up next.
Yeah, I just have to say I love the Colts one. That would have been my fourth block proposal, but I'm gonna go with Austin Eckler under 53.5. I mean, you make the jokes about like Grandpa Eckler, this and that. The Chargers' rush offense has been abysmal. Like take out, okay, you don't want to take out 1 week, whatever, but like since week 2 onwards, their rush success rate is 26%. The second worst Tampa Bay Buccaneers is 32%. They're dead last in every rushing metric. Austin Eckler actually can't run. I mean, that's like it's a joke, but he really can't. On the flip side, New England's been a top 5 rush defense. LA is more than happy to kind of let Justin Herbert throw a bunch, especially if the matchup calls for it. I kind of anticipate this to be kind of a slow slugfest type game. I do not see the Chargers relying on their ground game. And if they did, I don't even think it's going to matter because their ground game has been absolutely dreadful. And there's still some kind of leakage from some big explosive runs early on that I don't think are sustainable, especially not in this matchup against New England.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Just a comment looking at the slate this week, like offense is dead. The offense in the NFL is an absolute sham. It's so sad. The totals this week are, I mean, look at these things. 47.5.
What if I told you, George, before the season that in week 14, the second highest total in the league would be Broncos at Texans?
I mean, and that's, I mean, I look at that like, really? I mean, I guess you got CJ Stroud, although he's a little banged up. But I mean, these totals are pathetic. It really is pretty sad. I don't have another lock, but I just wanted to call out the fact that totals are hilarious, and it makes me want to bet overs, but I just cannot bring myself to do so. The one that is kind of interesting to me is Chiefs Packers at 42.5, because I do think that the Packers offense is playing well, and I kind of want to fade the narrative of the Chiefs, the defense matters that much, even though the Chiefs defense is playing very, very well. That's the only one that kind of tickles me a little bit, I guess. But I will get us kicked off and say that my favorite ones, I love the Evan Ingram one. I love the Colts as well. And of the ones that I brought forward, I obviously like Ayuk, but I think Mike Evans is my favorite of that group.
I like Evans and I like Ingram of those for sure.
Agreed on all fronts there. Evans really is popping, and
Yes.
a lot of the numbers, surprisingly.
Yeah, it's surprising. I'm telling you, he's underrated. He's very underrated. Okay. What other ones do we have? So we've got Evans and Ingram locked in. Brady John let us know that the Titans don't lose in Nashville, which is an important trend for us to follow. What are the other options for us here?
We got a teaser leg. We got some Seattle sack props.
I like the teaser, but we need some teaser redemption.
I like that
so
teaser too.
Cowboys down to 2.5 and Jags down to 2.5.
Yeah,
I like it. And what was the Mafe one?
Boye Mafe over a quarter plus 160. I do like that one.
Plus 160.
it's juicy.
Yeah, it's juicy.
Yeah, we need a little redemption on the sack prop. Yes, I like it. So one thing that I think we talked about last week that we need to start doing is like the SGPs are our favorite part of this whole thing. And I feel like we need to make sure that we give those to the people as well. So if you're listening, if you have not joined our Discord yet, you absolutely should. Link is in our Twitter bios. We post all the bets in there. A lot of good discourse, a lot of people who know what they're doing. Also gives you an opportunity to guess the lines with us on Sunday night. So go get involved there, and you can see all the bets that we're placing. Arjun tracks them on BetStamp as well, so you can see how they're doing. But highly recommend it. Locks of the week: Evan Ingram over, Mike Evans over. We'll post those numbers when they are live. We have a teaser with the Dallas Cowboys -2.5 and the Jacksonville Jaguars -2.5, and Boye Mafe over 0.25 sacks plus was it 160, 170?
160.
There we go. Those are the locks of the week. We'll be with you on Sunday night after an incredible Packers and Chiefs game. We love you all. Thanks for hanging out. Peace.